Hey my Shuga Bears, welcome back to my channel, Bougie AF. It's your host, Nicole. It's where I say stay bougie on them. It's me feeding you feminism for the soul. It's my soul food offering. It's where I apply pressure to issues by being critical and logical. Now don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's get to the commentary where I can guarantee you I will be doing too much because that's just me. And like Sheree said, who's gonna check me, boo?
All right, y'all. So I just finished my Gloria Richardson video, and I feel like I left something out. So I want to go back in because I did say in the beginning that I did want to talk about the origins of where I really feel like feminism started and stuff like that, and provide you with like a reference point of what I am talking about, because, you know, I don't be out here like not know what I'm talking about. Like, that'd be crazy. Like, who would do that? That's weird. Anyway, here we go. No, not this one. Oh. Actually, this is actually her website. This is another photo of her that I thought was absolutely beautiful, just to show a little softer side of her. But yeah, let me go to, okay, so here's the other interesting article, and I'm not gonna, this video is gonna be a little longer one, because like I said, there's a lot to of what I want to convey and what I want to get across, so that way people can just like leave me alone. I put it here on my channel, my YouTube channel, because I don't really want to talk about things a lot of times. Like, if it's a part of my show, then I'm talking about it. If it's something that you're interested in, if it's something that comes up in conversation, then we're talking about it, right? But I'm not out here like kind of screaming from a megaphone with the things that I believe in, but you quickly understand them if you violate them. You know what I'm saying? So we are at National Communication Association, and sites like these are really good, because when we're talking about CRT and we're talking about the history of Black people, like, we're going and looking at history and finding it is really important too, right? A lot of people don't know like what to look for and how to look for things. So a lot of times when I pull things up, I will take the time to tell you like how I'm searching it, what like the way I'm searching it, what inspires me to go look up something. Like, I want to share those things with people, only because I just think that's a great tool as we going forward and learning our history, since they want to keep it from us. You really do have to go and get it. So I think a lot of times, even when I hear people kind of complaining, I have to be completely honest, we got the same history that they got in school. In general, like general education, public school, we got the same history across the board, Black or white. Now, was it the correct history? Is there shit missing? Yes, but nobody was keeping us away from even the history that is being taught that a lot of people don't know, right? But there's still that aspect of, if you feel like something is missing, and this is my theory, and you can pick it up if you'd want to. I always felt, because the real core of my history is probably U.S. history, colonial and stuff like that. So I'm really into that type of stuff. Would go watch like a Civil War reenactment and stuff like that. Like, I'm into stuff like that. Okay. When I say I'm different, baby, I'm different. So with that being the core of what I love, I always grew up, and I remember saying to a teacher one time, I was like, well, there's not enough Black people. There's not enough. I feel like you guys are not teaching us everything that's out there. And he as cold as day. I'm talking about this white man, as cold as day. Let me know. If there's something else that you want to learn, you need to go do that. You need to go find it. You need to look it up. Nobody's going to be able to teach you everything. No one person in life is going to be able to teach you everything, show you everything. Even if you think they do the job the best, and they're responsible for showing you how, teaching you and showing you is something completely different. And that may go over a lot of people's heads, but it is what it is. Teaching you and showing you is something completely different. I can show you how to do something, right? I can show you how to do something, but not until you have a question and you've worked it out in your own thought process, and you ask a question to get an answer. No, that is teaching you. That is teaching you. That's my version of teaching. You can take it, accept it. So a lot of times, like, even if I'm like at work and jobs and stuff like that, that is missing. That is missing nowadays. Right? I can show you how. I'm not responsible for all of your growth. I'm not responsible for all of your learning, right? And the follow-up, if I miss something, because it's not purposeful, because I'm human, right? I'm not a computer. Sometimes I forget things. If I miss something, it's not me sabotaging. It's not me purposely, but the responsibility is still on you to come back and say, hey, something's not right, it's not working, or I have more questions, or can you go over this? That part of the work has to be done. right? You can't get mad at people when you don't do your part of situations and then feel like they were supposed to tell you everything. No, everything is not going to be told to you, and that comes down to history, and that comes down to school, all of school. Nobody's going to be able to tell you all of everything. I will say 80%, I feel, looking at what I know today in terms of history, 80% of it is me researching. And that's not me researching. Has been my extent of what I've learned, and that's me going through a great public education. But there was gaps. I still had to go fill those gaps in, and they did teach me that. So this article comes from June 2nd. So this is what I just wanted to tell you guys. Like, this is somewhere I pulled up. It's actually, I found this on my timeline on Facebook. So a lot of times I'll see things and I'll go to the corner and just put it under my saves and show, and under a photo I called show topics, right? Because I could use that as a reference and stuff like that. So that's a lot of times what I do. So this is Black women's historical speeches asserting self-determination and challenging racist narratives. Now I wanted and I'm bringing this up because, like I said, there is a part of the Black Black community that will really point to 1960 and 1970 as the core or the beginning of the feminist movement, right? But I think if you, like I said, if you know history and you look back at the suffrage movement, which was cloaked under it being a white woman's movement to gain her rights to vote, right? And that's exactly what ended up happening. But it was cloaked under that. But those are different types of feminist movement, different times that women showed up in history. So this is another time, and this is before the 1960s and 1970s, and this is just about feminist studies, and this is about early feminism, right? So the 1893 World Congress of Representative Women, WCRW, occurred concurrently with the World Columbian Exposition. Although it was meant to portray women's advances broadly, only a handful of Black women were invited to speak. In a new article published in NCA's Quarterly Journal of Speech, Sarah C. Vonder Hagen argues that these speakers situated emancipation as the beginning of Black women's progress in the United States. Furthermore, they emphasized that Black women's progress must be understood in relation to slavery, and that they were their own agents of change. Vanderhagen shows how contemporary Black feminists thought thought can help us better understand these women's speeches. Black feminist thought can help us better understand these women's speeches, I guess. So if you go back to, I know it was kind of choppy because I was trying to sometimes understanding and reading at the same time, but Black women's progress in the United States, furthermore, they emphasized that Black women's progress must be understood in relation to slavery, and that they were their own agents of change. So here, these women felt like, you know what, they seemed their community, Black community as a whole, right, still not having gotten our reparations, which was a promise, right? Because 1893, you know, we were freed in 1865, and we're still talking about maybe about like 20 something years later, so it's not too far off, and we still didn't get our reparations. So she's looking around and saying, for the advancement of my people, because we have not received our reparations, that we are our own agents of change, right? So I've heard that term, be your own agent of change. So this is an early concept of probably where that, you know, it goes far back. The 1893 World Congress of Representative Women, the WCRW, was attended by 150,000 people and honored the quadricentennial of Christopher Columbus' arrival in the Americas. See, look how they celebrated this man back then, right? History hadn't caught up yet to what really happened. There were more than 500 speakers, but only 6 were Black. Fannie B. Williams, born into an affluent free family in New York, Williams was married to a Chicago journalist and was a well-recognized speaker. Okay, to her having a husband. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all at Bougie AF, so I'm going to be throwing in the commentary, like, and throwing in the shade to all the whack-ass, like, opinions and things out there, right? The other thing that I wanted you guys to notice, right, how their message is not centered. It's not centered around the Black man and getting rid of the Black man in the household and from his kids and demasculating the Black man, right? That's not something that's going on right here, right? We're talking about the we're talking about the emancipation and we're talking about the advancement and the progress of black people, right? What black women have always did. Annie J. Cooper, an educator and published essayist. Cooper was born into slavery and later graduated from Oberlin College, that is in Ohio. Okay. All right, born into slavery. Fannie J. Copen, after an aunt purchased Copen's freedom, Copen graduated from Oberlin College and went to work as a teacher, missionary, and African Methodist Episcopal church leader. Ohio has have a large number of educated early black people. I will say that. I have noticed that a lot. Sarah J.W. Early, born to free parents, Early was a teacher and temperance lecturer. Okay, another woman who was working. We have working women here. Working women, okay? And whether or not you think a well-recognized speaker, that's a form of work, okay? Annie was an educator. Working women here, okay? Born into, and then there's Haley Q. Brown. Born into a free family, Brown was a graduate of Wilberforce University, an educator and a charismatic public speaker. That's so funny. That's another Ohio school, Wilberforce. Francis E.W. Hopper, the most well-known of the speakers. Hopper was born into a free family and was active in the abolition, women's suffrage, and temperance movements. Okay, so all movements that I brought up, I did talk about the women's suffrage, which ended up happening around 1920s. Again, we really still far from 1960s, 1970s to where it became like a white woman thing that women are out here coming to a white woman movement, but whatever. All right, so so Vanderhagen examines these women's speeches both as an individual speech act, as a broader collective conversation among the speakers that illuminates black women's activism during this period. Okay, activism, active. We were outside. Okay, Vanderhagen argues that this is consistent with black feminist thoughts, emphasis on the communal features of black women's resistance. Communal. Okay, so there was a lot there. Let me go back. Vanderhagen examines these women's speeches both as individual speech acts and as broader collective conversations among the speakers that illuminate black women's activism during the period. Vanderhagen argues that this is consistent with black feminist thoughts, emphasis on the communal features of black women's resistance. So just basically our resistance from the very beginning and what we have done since, that other woman that I mentioned, Harriet Tubman, since we would freeing men and niggas back in the day, since then the message has always been consistent about the progression and it being about the black community, right? Because women doing better also means the black community does better. And this is literally, men have a problem with this because we're talking about their insecurities of feeling either replaced or feeling like they're not able to achieve as women are in society at the current time. And hey, I'm not saying that as a knock or a slight or to make fun, but I'm just acknowledging what a thing is, right? Are they right? Or I can see how they could have some feelings or some reservations or fearful. I can see how they're fearful, basically. But that does not mean that it's not a thing because of their insecurity. Okay, so in their speeches, the women argued that emancipation was the starting point for their accounts of progress. By making this argument, they were rejecting the story told by the World's Columbian Exposition, which depicted white colonialism as the harbinger of progress and treated Columbus's arrival in America as a turning point for civilization. So basically, these women were getting these people in... they were black women that were intellectually gathering other, it seems Colombian, so Spanish and probably other white intellectuals about how, no, do not look at slavery as in I'm sorry. I'm laughing colonialism as the beginning and turning point of civilization. So basically, they were looking at it as Christopher Columbus. They were celebrating Christopher Columbus, and they were looking at it as more of a celebration. Like what he did was the turning point of civilization. Maybe take us out of the dark period or something. They look at him as a pivotal point of civilization, and I mean, I guess that is up for argument in terms of what did happen after that point. Right? You can always, there's just a lot of shit that happened with he did that to the history that we know now. But turning point. It's a turning point in civilization, but it's not a reference point, or it's not a talking point for black people. Williams set the stage for other speakers by talking with the white audience members about the impact of emancipation, how few of the happy, prosperous, and eager living Americans can appreciate what it all means to be suddenly changed from irresponsible bondage to the responsibility of freedom and citizenship. Williams argued that change had occurred swiftly following emancipation, and many white Americans were ignorant of emancipation and its after effects. Talking that shit. Williams was talking that shit. Like, that translates to 2021 of having to go through George Floyd and that happening, and have to re-blow people's mind to what is actually the black experience in America, where people had forgotten, or people thought there had been so much change that it just was not still the same, right? In response to Williams' speech, Cooper similarly emphasized emancipation as a starting point. However, Cooper highlighted the uncertain situations that face black women following emancipation. Since emancipation, the movement has been at times confused and stormy, so that we could not always tell whether we were going forward or grouping in circles. Come on, come through. She's letting you know, like, we always been here. We just been trying to get this together. Cooper also emphasizes the importance of education to Black America's Black Americans' future. You know what? Like, even when I'm like reading what let me continue. Vander Hagen argues that Coupin's speech positioned emancipation as a turning point, and challenged white women on the progress that they had made by comparing it with the progress black women had made. For if we black women have been able to accomplish anything in what are considered the higher studies, or if we have been able to achieve anything by heroic living and thinking, all the more can you white women achieve it. Ooh, that's good. I'm sorry, y'all, I had to read that in my head. And let me tell you why that's good. 1893 is when this happened. You have her. Where's that? I was just there. I'm not reading all this, but you have Copen saying in this article right here, we have advanced more than you as white women with what basically essentially would have been less, right? Yeah. Copen's speech, she's basically saying, compared to us in our turning point being at the Emancipation Proclamation, right, 1865, to now 1893, we have positioned and have advanced further. And with you being able to do more freely and more available to you when it comes to achievement, basically, is what she's saying. Yep. Vander Hagen argues that Copen speaks position emancipation as a turning point, and challenged white women on the progress that they had made by comparing it with the progress black women had made. For if we black women have been able to accomplish anything in what are considered the higher studies, or if we have been able to achieve, so yeah, what we have been able to achieve in higher studies, or if we have been able to achieve anything by heroic living and thinking, all the more can you white women achieve it. So we have been given less, you can do it. While Copen compared black women favorably with white women, early used statistics to describe how black women had organized themselves between 1865 and 1893. Way before 1960, I just wanted, 70s and Gloria and them. 1865 and 1893, and argued that the organized efforts of black women have contributed to the elevation of the race. Look at black women changing the race. We changing the race, y'all. Changing the race. Yo, this is what we do. Let me fix that a little bit, because y'all need to see that. Okay? We just out here changing the race. Let me see. We just out here changing the race. I gotta get my cursor on the screen so y'all can see it. But I do need my cursor on the screen. But yeah, it's the, let me see. Oh, let me read it again. While coping, so it is 1, 2, 3. It's the third big paragraph that's not chopped off. So what? From the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth paragraph from the top. While Copin compared black women favorably with white women, early used statistics, facts, I mean, that's what facts are right there, to describe how black women had organized themselves between 1865 and 1893, and argued that the organized efforts of black women have contributed to the elevation of the race and their marvelous advancements in a short time. Look at that. Looking at the progress made in only 28 years. Look at the good 28. The good 20. That's a good number. I'm gonna have to play that. Early foretold even more progress to be made in the coming years. So basically, like, I really wanted to show you guys this because I wanted to see, like, I wanted you guys to see, like, what I see and why I come from where I come from in terms of how I think about things and how I see it, and why, you know, sometimes when I see some black people tell me, like, white talking points, like, it really doesn't make sense. But also, real time, let's explore the effects of the So other things, it being coined feminist, the feminist movement happened during probably 1960, 1970, and I think that's what probably throws people off a lot, because I got coined that, but it was always like the suffrage movement. It's just always been a thing. Like, it's not like something that just like happened in the 70s, and I think that's something that for a lot of black people, they like to hold on to that and like to use it as talking points for the community breakdown, and it's just not a good talking point at all. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to click in. Yeah, so you see how they mention here the women's movement comes in waves, like, and it sometimes they name them differently. I mean, the suffrage movement and then the feminist movement, but we are back now. We're just calling it, I guess the Me Too movement, right? Remember, I go back to looking at things abstractly, right? And when I say look at things abstractly, to have a way of stepping outside of current movements of life and just imagine just taking everything that we got going on and throwing it on a canvas, right, and abstractly looking at it right now. You would call the Me Too movement a form of a feminist movement, right? Yeah, Me Too movement. So it's going to be considered that. But like I said, I think it's the rebranding of it also, like after, every few years, every 10, 20 years, it's rebranded something else. But the parachute that it falls under is feminism. I want something that speaks on the effects, though. Because I don't want, like, I want somebody who's going to. Okay, so this was February 10th, 1985. Chicago Tribune. Written by Clarence Page. Does feminism hurt black families? And this is some of the thoughts behind it. We modern men like to see our women liberated, but not too liberated. Oh, how nothing has changed. How nothing has changed. We don't mind the money they bring home, and we can work out hassles like daycare and job relocation. You like our money. Oh, los míos. But when it comes to those good old homebody roles like cooking, housekeeping, and diapers, well, most of us would just as soon go out and work on the car, okay? Most definitely, this writer, it's all about the tone and what you try to convey. He's most definitely sexist and misogynistic, you know what I mean? Oh, sure, you can find a few lovable Mr. Mom types, but according to various studies of the nation's 26 million two-paycheck families, most working women still get stuck with the housework. Predictably, this disparity is showing up as leading cause of divorce in two-income households. So basically, and this reminds me of that story I read where a guy, he posted, he was like, yeah, my wife left me. My wife divorced me because I kept forgetting to put the dish in the sink. And it was just like, I remember looking at that like, you idiot, like to even write that, to even suggest that you got left because of one time you forgot to put the dish in the sink implies that your mama may have dropped you at birth or something like that, and you got a head injury or something like that, because that's irrational behavior. Anytime there's a reaction off of a one-time situation, there's an extreme reaction to something that could possibly be explained, or just maybe a one-time mistake or something, that's irrational behavior. That person probably needs to go get some help. That's not okay. We all have things happen, it's all how you deal with things and your reaction. You should most definitely temper your reaction to what is actually occurring. That's very important. And so when and I know there's a lot of people, but like, oh, but you overreact. You do the most. Yes, I do. Yes, but I've tempered it to what has happened. You get what I'm saying? And if what has happened outweighs civility, what has happened outweighs me being able to talk to you in the nice and compassionate and sweet way, if it outweighs that, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right. So the disparity is showing up as a leading cause of divorce in two-income households. So yeah, basically, I told you that story about the guy in the dish because it's like, no. And for him to even still think that's the reason lets you know he doesn't get it. And not one time does someone divorce you because if you did something. But at the same time, it's an example to show he in his head has some leftover residue of being sexist, and so she just was done with it. If sameness is to be synonymous with equality, then God was the original sexist, says Hare. He won't why can't I see this? Okay. He won't win many feminist friends with lines like that. But here, a San Francisco-based clinical psychologist is no stranger to controversy. Okay. Meaning that he is probably one of the originators of doing it for clout, basically. It's when a professional in a profession takes such strong opinions that people then want to pay them to be on our TV screens and be on these news channels and giving you a very narrative view to help them be sensational, to help them book TV. At this point, I mean, that's not to say they don't have their education, but at this point they are actors in sense, because they know they have to be entertaining and they have to stick to a specific talking points to even be up there. So they'll go to the extent of being controversial. I mean, we see them a lot on the TVs. You know what I mean? Y'all see them. Y'all, most definitely. Like, who do y'all think Don Lemon and Chris Como and them be talking to? Like, they be talking to people who are professionals, but at the same time, they know what they're supposed to come on there and say. Back in the 1960s, and also I hate when professionals give like broad open views, because everything is just so situational. There's just no one thing. I know I hate it on Clubhouse where I'll see like there'll be a whole bunch of drama and shit like that, and then this like a psychology professor in whatever way they may be, it may be in school or maybe practicing or in some type of way, they'll get up there and give this like advice or give their opinions and with such authority. And I just think that's irresponsible to do, because you're not treating somebody's not your patient. You don't know the complexities of their story, because everybody's story is different, right? So when you're getting up there and you're implying, oh, people need to go get the professional help they need, and you're doing all of that shit could do more harm than good. All right, and I'm a real ass thing, and I'm gonna tell you, I be sitting there to listen to them like, oh, okay, let's go together. Like, that's basically what I be thinking about. Back in the 1960s, when dashikis, afros, and black power rhetoric was in fashion for black collegiates, he was a hero on many campuses. He founded the Black Scholar magazine, coined the term ethnic studies, and coordinated one of the first black studies programs. So when I agreed to appear with him on a radio program, I was eager to here's observation of the black progress since the 1960s. Now this may be interesting because, like, okay, he's been there from 1960s until this is happening. Let me see the year on this again. 1985. Ooh, I like that even better, right? Because that gives us a little bit of time outside of like when I feel like that movement was popping off, right? It gives a little bit outside of the start of that. So I think that's a good time to see like what its effects would have been to the people who would have been most affected by it at the time. If sameness is to be synonymous with equality, then God was the original sexist, says here. He won't win many feminist friends with lines like that, but here, San Francisco-based clinical psychologist is no stranger to controversy. Back in the 1960s, when dashikis, afros, and black power rhetoric were in fashion for black collegiates, he was a hero on many campuses. So basically, he was the cheesemo guy that was just walking around telling black women that they need to get back in the kitchen. He founded the Black Scholar magazine, coined the term ethnic studies, and coordinated one of the first black study programs. So when I agreed to appear with him on a radio program, I was eager to hear his observation on black progress since the 60s. Oh, I'm eager too. Then Paul Fanning, the show's host, gave me a copy of Hare's latest book, co-authored with his wife, Julia Hare, an educator. I could tell by its title, The Endangered Black Family. Oh, shit. I'm laughing because it's like when you're reading something and he said I could tell by its title, and then of course I read the title name right after it. It's like, yes, I can tell by its title, The Endangered Black Family, Coping with the unisexualization and coming extinction of the black race. Oh, they've been saying this shit from back then, from the 80s. Okay, and we still here. We still here after the extinction. When did the extinction happen? I don't know. That we were in for heavy discussion. The coming extinction of the black race. I read aloud. I would have had a hard time. I would have had a hard time in this conversation. I would have had a hard time just like partaking with it seriously for too long, right? I thought you'd like to know, Fanning said, do you have your will made out? As it turned out, the Hare supported women's rights, but claimed the issue had been misused in a way that has hurt family life, especially black family life. Unisexualization is the word for the way society is trying to emasculate the black man and demonize defeminize the black female, which creates sexual conflict. Let me read that again. Okay. All right, so unisexualization is the word that they're trying to use for the concept, or what they feel like feminism is doing by emasculating the black man and defeminizing the black female. And so they found a word for it, even though they do support women's rights. And so this is where it gets tough, and this is why I always say when it comes to when it comes to the conversation about trying to blame, since we're supposed to be extinct, is trying to blame to blame the feminist women from being defeminized because of because of the feminist movement. Again, I've been sitting on here and been talking all this time because I'm just trying to figure out, when haven't we been who we are? And what part and what rhetoric and who's spreading rhetoric that is emasculating the black male? Even in the 1980s, this is before social media, this is before everyone had a platform, this is before everyone had a voice to create and put a message out. This is way before that. 1985. This is way before women really had access to having a voice, honestly. So it's like, emasculate how? And when you say that in terms of like trying to take away, the black man's power, we're still talking about a group of individuals, meaning black women, who don't have much power themselves. And this is 1985. This is not 2021. Think about it from what I'm talking about. 1985. So to see that being said is just weird. In the studio, hair sounded reasonable enough, although his views were arguable. Okay, even in 2021, very arguable and lacking of substance so far. Like most academics, he loves to argue. We argued when he said the women's liberation movement has mainly helped white women take jobs that could have gone to black men. So you see how his argument about feminism isn't even about like his own woman. I mean, part of it, it's not even about his own woman. It's about how it affects him, right? From being able to get a job, because for him, a woman getting a job is just because she's a woman, right? And it's not because of the merits. Again, in 2021, there's a real fear. Women are the most educated. We are out there and stuff like that. So there's that real fear, but this just seems like this was the pre-fear of what is happening now. Like, and his fear and his part of his complaint is that he doesn't like having to also compete against women, right? He's okay with the concept of competing against men, but for him, only thing that he can think of is if a woman gets a job, it's because she's a woman, not because of merit. None of that. For him, it's because she's a woman. One group gains do not necessarily mean another group's loss. I mean, I feel like, what am I just like reading this shit before? Like I said in my, like it just like reads like butter. Like sometimes when you on point. But that's a lot of time how we hear things in the black community. You know how many times how much I anger people by feeling like I feel like I'm a beautiful woman, right? I feel like every woman should feel like they're a beautiful woman, right? But there are some people in their head, or if I feel like, what else? If I say something, oh no, that's not for me, right? Or I'm not doing that. I'm not taking that. Or if I make any bold assertions about me and who I am, for some people in their head, they really will feel as if though someone is saying that they aren't the same or they can't be the same way, if that makes sense. So like as if saying, because I feel like I'm beautiful, or as if though I'm feeling good about myself somehow implies that you aren't beautiful, right? And that's what ends up happening. Or if I say, I know this is real life example right here. So I remember one time a friend, she referred a job to me. No, she told me about a job, right? And, and she was telling me about it. And she was like, oh, this is how much such and such gets paid, and da-da-da. And all I said was, oh, okay. I mean, that's less than what I'm, out here for, right? I felt like she was so fucking offended, or that stayed on her mind to the point where in a future conversation, she was just like, oh yeah, I got this new job and it's starting at such and such, which was a job that was starting at more than that other job she had referred or tried to get me to get. But it just felt like, okay, you created a competition out of me just literally saying, oh no, that's not enough. Because you feel some sort of way because where you were at the current time. And it's that weirdness that sometimes people hear in their heads, and it's just like, no, that's not what that is. Like, so you mean to tell me if I go to the mall, if I, oh girl, I just bought this, or if I feel good about myself, what do you hear in your head? Like someone's bragging? And that's where like it just be about people and what they hear. You can get the job, man, and it not be because you can get the job, and it doesn't mean because black men are going to just lose automatically because women are competing. That's just weird. Yeah, one group's gain doesn't necessarily mean another group's loss. I said, an expanding economy would enable all groups to benefit, which end up happening. There's no reason for feminists and minority leaders to fight each other. There's still no reason in 2021 when we're not getting a lot of the pie for us to be going back and forth with us. It does not make any sense. I do not partake. If you think I'm better and all this other stuff, if you think I'm just struggling with speaking on a stage and speaking to people, think whatever the fuck you want to think. Like, it does not do anything for progression for me to argue some of this shit, because it just be outside of our cultural bubbles, outside of our family bubbles, outside of our friend bubbles, outside of our professional work bubbles. There's thoughts and opinions, and there's opinions that don't match up outside y'all little comfort zone, your little bubbles, right, with the rest of the world. So a lot of times when I hear people talk about women's rights and feminism and stuff like, and their talking points, it just doesn't match up to what the rest of the world is talking about. Yes, Hare agreed, but our economy has not expanded enough to help everyone, and minority males so far have come out with the least. As a result, professional black women are more likely to marry down to a man with less education and income, and are twice as likely to divorce as their white sisters. This, along with chronic unemployment, has led to widespread tension in the black code. This, along with chronic unemployment, has led to widespread tensions in the black code. So, this is where what he's saying seems kind of asinine, right? So black women being looked at, and feminist black women looked at as a bad thing, has nothing to do with the unemployment rate and people's being able to, the fairness, right? If that's when fairness should be used, the fairness of people being able to apply and have jobs and have opportunity for them, right? So when that is blocked, then how could black women affect that? Like, there's no jobs. Now, what does seem true, what did come to pasture in 2021, is he was right about this. As a result, professional black women are more likely to marry down to a man with less education and income, and are twice as likely to get divorced as their white sisters. And I don't even think that's something that you can compare to their white sisters, because we're not sisters. And I say that because when in terms of marrying and dating, our selection in what's going on in our community are different. It's different. So I don't feel like we're sisters in the sense of, because when I call someone a sister, we're in the same fight. I see another black woman, like, hey sis, this is a woman I acknowledge as being my equal. We're in the same fight in life, but no, not with white women. It don't work in that way in this conversation and talking about marrying and stuff like that, because rarely do they marry down, even in 2021. That's still a fact. So yes, of course they will be likely to divorce if you're saying that we divorce more because of we're marrying down, if they're not marrying down. So I don't know why he thought that. But I do think that's a fact, that women have had to marry down. But is it marrying down? Is it marrying down? I don't think it's marrying down. Wait, let me think about that. I guess so. I guess it would be considered marrying down, but I guess that's all in how you think marrying down is, right? You could marry somebody that is an entrepreneur in his own whatever field he's created, and he makes a good enough living for you guys to survive with two incomes, right? I don't consider that marrying down, right? And I think it just literally has to do with the ability of obtaining wealth, is whether or not you marry it down. Because a man marrying a woman is not questioned on whether or not he married down, because it's not even mattered on what she has for money. But a woman marrying, and depending on what he has, then it's considered to be marrying down, right? If she has more than him. But if we're talking about a community, right? And both both the women and the men. I know y'all like to think like you're the only ones having to deal with this racist system, but if black women and men, right, are having a hard time obtaining wealth, is there really a lot of room to feel like there's a lot of marrying down happening? Now, I just want to be completely honest. Is there a lot of room? Do you think me going to college and working corporate jobs and stuff like that, compared to probably a man who probably able to obtain a whatever his regular job, even if he created his own business, coming together is better than not being together, in my opinion. As long as we're able to pay my bill, we were able to pay bills and stuff like that, and be thinking and trying to move forward in different ways to grow our, I'm okay with that. But the marrying down thing, it's not even something that is really real in the black community, because you have to have something across the board. The women's liberation movement has not served black people well, even though a lot of blacks have bought into the movement. He said, what we need is a new black feminism. Is what we need is a new black feminism. So what do we do? Hair pushed for ideas. Resist population control. There are plenty of resources in the world, he says. They just need to be shared by more people. Resist population control. There's a population control in the United States back in 1985? Like, was there a cap on kids or something, like China? Because China just uplifts their cap. They had a 2-kid cap in their country because they're so overpopulated. But was there something like that I didn't know about in the United States, that he resists population control? Okay. So I mean, I guess there must be something going on. Like he thought that they were going to cap it or something, like, because that's just weird. We build a good image for nurturing. Many working women and men, for that matter, would love to stay home, but don't, because society has degraded the role. The highest form of labor anyone can do to produce socially acceptable adults, Harris said. But we keep saying the only way you can gain social importance is by outside employment. So he's saying that women need to see the purpose of what being a good mother is for the betterment of the black community, the most important thing, because what's most important is that you are able to produce acceptable adults. That's what he said. That, we need to know that, our most important role is that we're able to raise socially accepted adults. I think that's our, meaning father and son, most important role, is to make sure that if we decide to have kids, to raise socially acceptable adults. It's not one person's responsibility over the other person. And just the pure fact that this can even be said when a lot of times, even in 1985, which seemed like there was still a lot of single mothering going on. Like, this is not a new phenomenon. It was happening around then. You had the crack epidemic. You had fathers leaving the home. It was something that had already been going on. So for him to say that it's socially just one-sided, the responsibility of the mother, is weird. Educate everyone well. That is the truth. Forget teen unemployment, he said. Most teens do not need to be employed. They need to be in school preparing themselves for a lifetime of employment. Show them how to postpone their need for immediate gratification. He must have talked to my mother, because I will tell you that my mother was most definitely that was her thing. That's most definitely how she felt. She felt like when we were working growing up in high school, no, we only needed to work on the weekends. And it was really the truth, because there was no importance on my little bit of paycheck for me, right, in life. The importance was like, go to school, right, be a kid in that way. The bigger picture is to go to college and stuff like that and get a good job. So don't focus on that right now. And I think that's really important. I think there's a lot of kids who have fallen. I think I've had a lot of kids that have fallen to getting distracted by the short-term money of working at the Walgreens, or working at the local restaurant, working at McDonald's, and getting that paycheck and being able to, buy whatever they want, and then they end up talking back a little bit more and feeling like they're grown, instead of just concentrating on what they need to concentrate. Oh my God, this article is back in 1985, y'all. Encourage Black Love. A network of encounter groups would help Black men and women work out conflicts and discuss the roles nuclear and extended to families can take. So go to therapy? Oh, okay. I mean, that should just been overall a message. I don't think it has to be a message in trying to talk against feminism. So again, what does this have to do with feminism affecting Black love? What does this have to do with the feminism and how we affect Black love? Because what I'm looking for is where people say, oh, feminists say women should leave. I'm looking for that. And that's not even they're not even citing people who this leading feminist said that Black women should leave their husbands and let them show them how it feels. There's none of that. sounds good, but much of here's program, especially the reallocation of food and education resources, required dollars few people seem willing to spend in the age of Reaganomics. Like, niggas was broke, and he's talking a whole bunch of women stay home and just raise kids while the niggas ain't even coming home type of shit. Like, basically, that's how that sounded. As for improved relations between the sexes and the better image for the nurturing role, those will require attitude changes, and we can start working on that, right? Basically, like re-imaging of the roles, like, and this is why I say that sometimes, like, our conversation isn't matching. And this is reading this and this guy, and then reading the author and how he kind of put it together. You can see where the suffrage movement, right? 1960s happened, meaning white people, feminism. So probably by 1985, going into 1990, and even to right now, white men seem to be a little bit more well adjusted. White men seem to be a little bit more well adjusted to women being feminists than men are. So in this conversation, his tone just seems very like he's kind of like, God, this is so juvenile. Like, literally, his tone in reading this shows me that he thought his talking points and all the other stuff that he pointed out was very juvenile and didn't have a lot of context, didn't have a lot of depth to to how he felt. Right? Because teen unemployment has nothing to do with feminism. Right? Teens are always going to want to get a job. That has nothing to do with it. So he probably had two resistant populations control. What did feminism have to do with that? I don't know. Hold on one second. Let me do this real quick, because it just seems like a lot of men sometimes don't like the feminist movement because it requires them not to be able to behave in a way that is disrespectful and dismissive of women. That's what it seems like, because you'll see this like, oh, they changed it, or you'll see women women like me being mistreated or treated differently by black men because they just don't want somebody to take any type of authority. I'm not gonna say over them, but authority in situations, or if they have to speak up for themselves, right? So they're gonna try to demonize any woman. Oh, you're trying to make a man feel some sort of way. I can't make you feel some sort of way. Now, I can't make you feel some sort of way no, I can't make you feel some sort of way. It's not my responsibility, nor should I care, or nor should there be no adjustment being made by me, because you aren't comfortable with my presence, right? That's not how life works. Like, we all don't like people. Like, it's weird. but that's the bullying that I feel like that happens with that. When women are known for not taking shit from men. Like, there's a real part of our community where being called a bitch and overtalked and disrespected and all the other stuff, that's a real thing out here, right? I'm sorry. And with that being a real thing, there are women who buy into that behavior from men and accept it. So when there are women who don't come around, they are looked at as the troublemakers, because, like, who talks to a dog like that? Nobody. This is not what I wanted. I wanted to hear. So a lot of my reading is articles, and a lot of my reading is like, I like textbook type of material, like where people lay out information instead of trying to feed me like their narrative or their opinion about a situation. So a lot of times when people are like kind of recommending books and stuff to me, I have a hard time with it, because I really rather go get the information than go get the information with someone else's already formed opinion, and then I'm sounding like I'm out here regurgitating. I think the strongest thing that I'm able to do is take information and put it in a way that when I'm expressing myself, it's my own, right? It's due to the research that I looked into things. It's due to the formed opinions that I've come to from the things I've looked into. So I'm not really into all of reading a whole bunch of people's books of unfounded or unrecognized information. And I think the side note to that is, a lot of times I get suggestions to read not suggestions, but I know some people would like me to read about the Black Native Americans, and the one thing that I do, and I've been asking, I don't want this off-cuff book by one person, and that's not to say that there's not probably some believable things in that book, but at the same time, just like science, right, there is a scientific method, there's a process, right, to finding a pattern or determining if something is a fact or determining that something is either a cure, or there's a process to leading up to that, right? There's trials, there's testing, there's a process. That's the same type of concept that is in when it comes to history. There's a process of being able to establish something as a historical fact, right? So when I ask somebody, where has it been researched and studied and been accepted as a fact, it's because I know that there's a process. I'm not saying that because the white man is going to tell me some information, or the white information from the man is better than the black person's information. No, I'm saying that because I'm my own rational thinking as person. So if you tell me it's been recognized here, if you give me some reference points and I can go there and see what's going on, then I can come to those conclusions. But if you can't do that, and I can't see that there was a process to determine that this should or could be a fact or is a fact, then the onus is on you to prove what your thoughts. It's not on me to go prove them. What do I want? I just want something that, what were the goals? Oh, okay, there we go. What were the goals of 1960 and 1970? The goals of the feminist movement. And let me tell you something. And to hear black women talk about feminists and talk out against feminist movement, and I've heard a lot of the, white women are, that's a white woman's movement and stuff like that. And a lot of times, and it's so funny, I was in Clubhouse and one day there was this room and we don't get I have not been able to get into a room with a lot of the mix of white women feminists and black women feminists, just to see that dynamic, because so many of the black women feminists are like, I'm not a feminist, I'm a womanist, I'm not blah, 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 blah. So many of that. And so I happened to catch a room one day, and I promise you, I've been trying to get in a room with this girl since then, okay? Because she made a little sly comment, and I felt like, I picked up, it wasn't sly, but it was, she made a comment that I felt may have went over people's heads a little bit. And the comment was about white women and white feminists and why they don't lend more support to black women. And she had said, well, I didn't know you guys had a problem with such and such type of behavior in terms of, I think they listed like black music. We didn't know you guys had a problem with it. Like, we didn't know that there was a problem. And then I was like, ooh, touche, because at the same time, you got to give credit where credit is due, right? And so when someone makes a point, white or black, because points and, points don't have a color and aren't colored. But when she made a point, and I was like, damn, it's a confusing to the outside people looking into black women and in our culture and looking at what we go through and what we allow to happen to us and the things that we promote and the things that we stand up for, right? So a lot of times it can be, I can understand where she's coming from. Like, I thought you guys were good. Y'all buy the music where they call you bitches and hoes. I'm just saying. We do. And I do. I'm not saying I don't. Like, let's keep it real. I'm not saying I don't. But what I am saying is I can see how on the outside looking in, because it would feel like y'all like what you like, and if you didn't, you wouldn't support it. And if you didn't, and if you weren't with it, and if you were more together yourselves, you would have movements yourself. We have a more active black feminist movement to see that this is really a problem that we should get into. And right now we don't have it because we're so divided on trying to figure out, or we're so divided in the community, or women, are so divided in our community. We're trying to reckon with trying to compare these grown ass men to y'all sons. Stop it. This shit is weird. You can't talk to a black woman without her always talking about her fucking black son. I'm not fucking or dating your black son. He's not a part of the conversation. And the only reason I find it weird when women do that is because you raised a trashed ass son. I don't see women who raised good sons when you talk about trash ass dudes being like, well, I got a son. And then the ones who be talking about their kids who are under 18, come on, they're like, that's not a part of the grown folk conversation that we're having, to be completely honest with you. It's not a part of the grown folk conversation we're having. You keep on talking about your fucking son when we talking about grown ass men raised by your aunt. The fuck you talking about? We talking about your fucking cousins and shit, and you want to talk to me about your son. You just do better for you and your son. But can we keep the conversation towards the 18? I'm sorry. Can we keep the conversation, because, you know, get it in range. Keep the conversation to the 25 and plus crowd and what that looked like, and tell me what that looked like for you. Can we have a conversation of in reality without you trying to talk about your fucking son, you weirdo, calling him king and you're married to him and all types of weird shit? I'm just saying. Let's get back into this. This has already been an hour, so I'm gonna have to post this by itself. All right, so this is Thought Company and Goals of the Feminist Movement. So right now, all we're doing is exploring what was the message in the 60s and 70s. I'm trying to find the message so I can just kind of understand in 2021 when I see men try to blame feminism for the demise. Not them on the street hustling, okay? I'm just saying, not them on the street hustling. Not what we see in Paid in Full. And not what we see in New Jack City. Not what we see in Jason lyrics. What was his name? Isaiah? Okay, not that. No. None of that. Not Boys in the Hood. Not don't be a menace in society. Not none of those types of behaviors. Anything, because the art reflects reality in real life, right? Not none of those things. For a lot of black men, it is black women that they need to sit around that call themselves feminists. Because it's not like they're running out of women, right? Because, you know, women they outnumber men, right? They are concerned about the women that aren't dating their fuck ass. That's what it just get weird to me. Because it's like when you complain about feminists, it's like, well, then go get you one that ain't one. What are we talking about? We ain't talking about nothing. That's just literally how I be feeling about it. Okay, feminism changed women's lives and created new worlds of possibilities for education, empowerment, working women, feminist art, and feminist theory. For some, the goals of the feminist movement were simple. Let women have freedom of equal opportunity and control over their lives. So when you say control over their lives, sort of like what Britney Spears is fighting with her father, trying to control her, her birth control and her having kids. You know, that was a real issue for us back in the day. I don't know if y'all know that, but I know y'all like to take all of what women complain about and have fought over the years and try to roll it over into what you want the narrative to be. For others, through the goals were more abstract or complex. Scholars and historians often divided the feminist movement into three waves. I need y'all to pay attention. The first wave, feminism, rooted in the late 19th centuries. That is the suffrage movement. I'm sorry, that's the 19th century. That's the movement that I just read for you guys. In terms of, let me bring it back up. In terms of this article, this is the context, right? Context is important. So this is the first wave that I feel like they are talking about. Like that's 19th century is 1893, remember? 1896 is when that was. And early 20th century, which would be 1923, around then, and it being the suffrage movement. So they're, to me, I feel like they're acknowledging, see, historians acknowledge the first feminist movement as being a black movement, because that's late 19th century, 1890s, and probably when white women really did start being feminists, to be completely honest, right? And I outlined that in that paragraph that I read to you before, just to show you that they weren't on the move until later on, right? The suffrage movement. What else? Okay. It's closely related to the women's suffrage movement, as it focused primarily on legal inequalities. In contrast to second wave feminism, was mainly active in the 1960s and 70s and focused on inequalities embedded in the social norms more than laws. I need you guys to understand that, because I'm going to end it here, because that's the main point of what I'm talking about. As feminists, we've always pivoted within society and showing up on how we need to show up. In the 19th century and the early 20th centuries, those were different types of movements. 19th centuries were the women that I read those paragraphs for. They were talking about the progression of black people in general, of women early in academia and stuff like that, right? And how, women progression is overall good for the black community. Always about black people, right? Early 20th century, more of a white, suffrage movement and stuff like that. And then reintroduced, or kind of needed to come back outside. Black women needed to come back outside in the 1960s. In 70s, in contrast, the second wave of feminism was mainly active. Also, the 19th and the 20s considered as the first wave. Second wave is considered 1967. In contrast, second wave feminism was mainly active in the 1960s and 70s and focused on inequalities embedded in social norms more than laws. So basically, in the 60s and 70s, it was not so much about the laws, right? By then we could vote, and stuff like that. We were getting out to work a little bit, but it was more or less challenged in the social norms of what I said to before: domestic violence, being able to have more autonomy over our bodies, being able to make more decisions, not being boxed in certain boxes of what femininity is and what you should be as women, really getting away from that in the mass type of sense. Yes, there was other of course there weren't women who were that docile women. Of course, we can see that way before 1960, 1970s. But the problem was that the programming and the what was considered norm was socially oppressive to black women, or women in general, that it just wasn't fitting us right anymore. And so that's why in the 1960s and 70s it was about the social norms that were Here are specific feminist movement goals from the second wave of feminism: rethinking society with feminist theory. This was accomplished by, among other disciplines, women's studies, feminist literary criticism, genocriticism, socialist feminism, and feminism art movement. Looking through a feminist lens at history, politics, culture, and economics, feminists developed insights into just about every intellectual discipline. That's why I said we've been outside. To this day, the field of women's studies and gender studies are major presences in academia and in social criticism. All right, here it goes about the autonomy of our body. So it became this second form of feminism was about us having more control of our body. So that's where you have the Roe versus Wade and stuff like that. Damn, I wasn't even looking, and it was right there in the article. Roe versus Wade decision in 1973. That's where we have that come up. Desexing the English language, taking out the patriarchal society in our language. Feminists helped spark debate over assumptions embedded in English language that reflect the notion of male-dominated patriarchal society. Language was often centered around males, assuming the humanity was male and women were exceptions. Use neutral pronouns, identifying words with gender bias, invent new words. Many solutions were tried, and the debate continues into the 21st century. Only thing I can think of, like as an example of that, is like the term woman. And then if you can see, some people spell it W-O-M-A-N, and then some people spell it W-O-M-E-N, right? So it's that type of looking at the English language and saying, hey, you guys are really, it's really heavy with everything coming off as male sounding. And where they say it's still a debate into the 21st century, I mean, let me see, when was this? Okay, the February 7th. Yeah, it's really still much of a debate nowadays, because where people are now trying to, when people want to be referred to as pronouns, And I have no problem with it if it makes you feel better. But at the same time, I do have a problem when people lose their fucking mind if you make a mistake, right? I think when you can't interpret someone doing something out of malicious or just ignorance, and not that bad ignorance, that ignorance of just not knowing because they haven't been able to been educated about it. When you lose your mind about shit like that, then I don't. Okay, what's your name? Like, that's all you gonna get from me, because some people are doing too much, but I get wanting what you want, and that's fine. But don't overdo it. Education. Many women went to college and worked professionally in the early 20th century, but the mid 20th century ideal of the middle class suburban housewife in the nuclear family downplayed the importance of women's education. So that separate wife shit. They're talking about feminists knew that girls and women must be encouraged to seek an education, and not just as something to fall back on. If they are to become and be seen as fully equal, and within education access by women to all programs, including sports programs, was a major goal in the 1972 Title Title IV forbade gender discrimination in education related programs that received federal funding, such as school athletic programs. So basically, Title IV is why, and when you talk about collegiate sports and you talk about schools and stuff like that, the women's programs. So every school have to have some type of women's program, and they have to offer it in every category. They have to offer whatever they offer for men, they have to offer it for women too, a lot of times. But yeah, that's what that's about. But that was important because when women do have something to say, that like their education and playing sports and seeing themselves more included in things, then they know that there's more to life than just having your fucking nappy headed ass kids. I'm just gonna be completely honest. Oh man, life is having a nappy head kids, and me still having a piece of me, and still having a sense of who I am. But I mean, it's that, right? And I think men just weird. Equality legislation. Feminists worked for the Equal Rights Amendment, the Equal Pay Act, right? The addition of sex discrimination to the Civil Rights Act, and other laws that would guarantee equality. Feminists advocated for a variety of laws and interpretations of existing laws to remove impediments to women's professional and economic achievements or full exercise of citizenship rights. Feminists questioned the long traditions of protective legislation for women, which often sidelined women from being hired, promoted, or fairly treated. So a lot of that, I think, has to do with like roles that were socially, and this is where we were saying this movement, it's about removing some social norms, right? Socially, there just were some roles that was just thought to be men roles, and that's job roles. Even TV, like you're talking about TV producers, productions, and even now when we're talking about coaches and stuff like that, like bringing it down to even like just roles that were just thought to be for men, that there was just ways that it just sidelined women from being able to apply for those type of roles. So just getting away from that social norm of like, yes, we can do that, we can be lawyers, we can be all those things, we can be doctors, because it was literally like those were the roles that people like had very sexist mindsets on, like what was for a man and what role or what job men should do. And a lot of those roles are the lawyers, are the doctors, are the dentists, are those type of roles. Women notoriously, and that's what I just said, yeah, they got degrees a lot of times that they knew they weren't going to do anything but get married and have kids and stuff like that. But even if women had to go to work or had to be a working woman back then, she was a secretary. It was very low level ish. The League of Women Voters, so this is promoting political participation. So basically, I'm just going to read the headlines because we participated, we could run for office more, that went up. Rethinking women's roles in home. You on Tuesdays and Thursdays are responsible for dinner in the house. Now, however you make that happen, if it's cheeseburgers and french fries and hot dogs and french fries on a Tuesday night, that's what the fuck we eating. If it's you bringing something home on a Thursday night, that's what the fuck we eating. But it's you taking some responsibility in the home and being responsible for things, right? It's us splitting the responsibility of the making sure the kids get to practices. It's us working realistically together around our schedules that make us happy. Is that what we're talking about? We're rethinking women's role, because nobody is saying nobody wants to cook. Nobody is saying that. Nobody. More importantly, I think y'all hear feminism and y'all think women don't want to suck dick no more. That's literally what I think y'all think y'all hear. Like, we don't want to fuck no more. That's all I feel like y'all are concerned about. That's all I think y'all talking about, to be completely honest. Oh my God, this looks good. This last part, rethinking women's roles in the home. And then, okay, I think I might have to read that. Although not all feminists call for the collective mothering or went so far as to urge seizing the means of reproduction. Oh, what did I miss? What did I miss? Oh, let me read this. The call for abortion on demand is often misunderstood. Leaders of the women's liberation movement most definitely understood. It's just the right to choose. Nobody is saying across the board that women should just be doing this. Like, what type of dumbass message is that? We're still trying to get you locked up for raping us, and so now you want to make women have your babies? Like, it's weird. The call for abortion on demand is often misunderstood. Leaders of the women's liberation movements were clear that women should have reproductive freedom and safe access to legal abortion, making the choice for their reproductive status without interference by the state or paternalistic medical professionals. Second wave feminism led to the landmark Roe v. Wade decision in 1973, which legalized abortion in most circumstances. I thought that I only went back to read that because I seen this part. Although not all feminists call for collective mothering or went so far as to urge seizing the means of reproduction. As Sulamith Firestone wrote in the dialectic of sex, it was clear that women should not have to bear the sole responsibility for raising children. Roles also included who does the housework. Often full-time working wives did the majority of housework, and various individuals and theorists proposed ways of changing the proportions of who did which household chores and who held responsibility for those chores as well. It's not one person's job. Like, that's why it's so, even like when you talk about Nick Cannon and having all these kids, and it's like, okay, yes, you are a man with a lot of means, and means you have a lot of money, and where, money does make up for not being able to be there. It makes up in some ways, I want to be clear, but it does not make up in all ways. So no, I don't think that's the best situation, but shit happens. But this is not a shit happens. He said it was all planned. So to have 7 kids, I think it's 4 different baby mothers, and to feel like you can equally be there and attentive and have the same type of relationship that you should have across the board with your kids, I don't know, I think that's selfish, and it seems very vain. It seems very like, if I had to think, it seems very like, it just seems very, like the feudal system of like, just, I need legacy and I need kids, and I see a lot of that going on, with men, nowadays, like black successful men, right? Kids, and who am I going to leave this to, legacy and stuff like that. But at the same time, with that nuance, meaning money being available to certain people in the community, also there's still a social responsibility, like y'all said, to make sure you're raising, let me go back here, make sure that you're raising, let me make sure, what did y'all say? It is your responsibility to make sure that you are turning out, what did they say here? Oh, it's your responsibility to make sure that you are you're producing socially acceptable adults. All right. So that's why when it comes to Nick Clean, I hope you're producing socially acceptable adults. And I hope you don't think money makes up for your ability to produce socially acceptable adults. We see people with money all the time who kill themselves, who suffer from severe depression and all that types of stuff. So I say that to say it's just not necessarily the golden ticket to life not being hard, nor can you determine what life cannot be hard, or you just might not know. You don't know what's going to happen. But at the same time, what we do know is that you will not be able to equally be supportive and have bonds with children, but not being in a home. It did suggest that any adult who loved to have someone to play the housewife role. Oh, wait. Roles also included, I'm right here in the first paragraph still. Roles also included who does the housework often. Full-time working wives did the majority of housework, and various individuals and theorists proposed ways of changing the proportion of who did which household chores and who held responsibilities for those chores as well. An essay from the first issue of Miss Magazine called "I Want a Wife" did not mean that every woman literally wanted a wife. It did suggest that any adult who loved to have someone to play the housewife role, as it had been defined, the caretaker and the one who runs things behind the scenes. And while feminism re-examined the maternal role expected of women, feminism also worked to support women when they were the primary caretaker of children or the primary custodial parent. Feminism worked for family leave, employment rights through pregnancy and childbirth, including covering pregnancies and newborn medical expenses through health insurance, childcare, and reform in marriage and divorce. All right, so I'm going to just stop reading this only because I feel like I've proved my point, right? So when I hear black men talking about all of what feminism has did with or to the black family and to the black community, and I'm reading things that seem to be like really good things that actually help the black community, it's actually needed in the black community, has always been needed. I just never hear any real sound examples or references to things that were specifically done outside of you feeling like women are outside of you guys just having opinions about women that you're not attracted to for either their personality or for their personality and who they are. And that's fine, but it's not the fall of the black community. It's really fucking Isaiah from Jason Lyrics, to be completely honest. But anyway, that's just me. That's just my opinion. I think we need to get focused on what really is the problem. It's really, you mammies and your sons, and that's just how I feel. I mean, everybody's a part of the problem, to be honest with you. I'm being funny, but everyone's a part of the problem. But I think it's really bad when you have men sitting on app trying to imply that women are the biggest problems, and that's just not the case. So y'all know how we do it here. We keep it bougie and posh and feminism and feminists and womanists and all those other things that are all the same thing over here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Get in the comment section. Let me know what you think. What does your feminism look like, right? Because I don't think it's the same across the board, but at the same time, I don't think it's too far off, right? Because I never hear feminists talk about how you should hate men, and more feminists that I do meet, they usually are married to men, so it's just really weird. It's not a whole and it's so weird that people feel the way they do. I don't know. I don't know. It's just weird because it's not a lesbian movement, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not a lesbian movement. And it seems like black men tend to think that, because they tend to think that because we want better for ourselves, and it's like one group thinking because one group wants good for themselves that the other group can't have, because we want better for ourselves from somehow, some way. You guys have heard in you are hearing that we don't need men, and nobody has said that. A woman cannot hold me. She can hold the next bitch, but she can't hold me. That ain't what I like. As much as I'm a feminist, it's not what I like. So I don't hate men, right? I hate trash ass men. Again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'm out.